PBS the other night had a documentary on Nova, produced in 1917 and aired in 1917. Why did they air it last night? It might be is because in 1917 they were looking at the strongest hurricanes in the Caribbean, or strongest hurricanes that ever hit in the Caribbean. And one they found was 1780. It was a super thing. Barbados, it destroyed the island. It recorded 22,000 deaths across the Caribbean. It sunk dozens of warships. See, Spain, France, Britain, and the Dutch were all fighting down there at one time. And then the hurricane came along and it basically smashed them against the island. Smashed the ships, sunk the ships, killed the crews. But they figured they had 120 mile an hour winds, something like that. But they had a tidal surge of at least 25 feet, and that's 25 feet across the island. That's a lot of water, and things lingered for a while, and then of course it hit the other thing. And what it did, it basically went up, traveled up north, far off from on the east side of the Bahamas. Boom. And they explain how hurricanes developed. You've got warm water here, and you've got cold air up here, and the warm water acts as the engine, the energy to make that thing, and the spin of a hurricane is, or like a tornado, that is a rotation of the planet. And they looked at something like Sandy when it hit New York, where they destroyed $15 billion in property damage, flooded New York, subways, knocked out power, and then of course along the shoreline they had a raging fire, which basically, because of the wind, one building caught fire and it just went boom, even with raining and everything else, it just went boom. And you had all these buildings. Of course, what happened is the people, what did the people do? Well, some of those people, oh, we're going to fix up my house. Some have raised their homes on stilts. Of course, they still sit by the ocean, 10 feet high or 15 feet high. That's great. But why did they show it last night, or the other night on PBS? It's because in the Caribbean, around Florida, around Cuba, the temperature of the water is averaging 88 degrees. So what? Well, the University of Florida and a few other colleges and that thing has decided to say the coral is being basically roasted alive or boiled alive. So what they're going out there, they're harvesting the coral there, they're taking it down, bringing it back to the universities, placing it in cool salt water, 75 degrees, whatever it is, that thing, to keep them. And hopefully the temperature will drop. But the other factor is this: it's 88 degrees. All that energy, you can see it on infrared from satellites across the United States and everything else. All this is red, orange. And they're waiting for a tropical depression to occur out in the Atlantic and come west. And it's going to pick up all that energy from all that warm water. And what they may have had, 120, 130 mile an hour. You can have 150, 180 mile an hour wind. You can have, 3 feet of water. You can have a tidal surge, 50 feet high. Well, maybe too high, but 25 feet high. That goes into that thing. it's basically when somebody says, well, yeah, but yeah. So they expect to have a super hurricane coming months. They have basically said this: New York is not prepared yet. How high is their seawalls? The last time when Sandy hit, it flooded the subway system, caused billions of dollars worth of damage, shut off the power in the area. If New York gets hit with, or that coastline gets hit with 150-mile-an-hour winds, they basically will sweep everything off the island, little sandbars, and cause major damage in New York City. You expect to have tidal surge of 25 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet being pushed in here with 150-mile-an-hour wind. You're going to have damage in New York City, Manhattan Island. You figure that, yes. Miami, that type of thing hits. Every home that has to be sitting on the ground there is going to get swept away. All along the East Coast, if you're sitting there, you're very likely your house will be swept inland. 25-foot tidal surge or more. 150-mile-an-hour winds. That's, how much of will be damaged. I lived in Miami, and that was 50 years ago. And when the tide came in, the little creeks in there, the water rose and then it dropped. Now what's happening, without even a high tide, water's in the streets, and when the tide comes in, more water's in the streets. Cars are driving through salt water, not very good for the metal. But if you have a surge, 25-foot waves, bye. And if they have 150-mile-an-hour winds, every home down there is rubble, which has happened before in Florida, and people just keep rebuilding. And they keep saying, we got to stop the CO2 the next few years, and 10 years, eliminate it all, so everything. And how are we going to do that, huh? I drive a car, I use gasoline. Oh, you have electric thing. Well, to make the electric car, you need energy. And most of that, electric cars are made out of plastic. Wow, you're going to stop drilling for oil? Really? Right. So, what are you going to do?